Yo, good morning. What's going on? Welcome. Coffee with Creators here at Adorama itself, 42 West 18th Street. That is not a green screen. That is the actual store. And you can come here like Ken just showed up and this guy in the back and these people, Mary Irene. But I got Dane Isaac with me today. Awesome photographer, also an architect, Sony Collective member, pro photo guy, shoots film, RZ, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, number one, Bing. You're a Sony Collective member? Well, Sony, thanks so much for sponsoring this. You guys know Sony. The Alpha series, the A9 III just came out. It is in stock here at Adorama if you want to check it out. And last time I saw you was actually a Sony rooftop event.
Yeah, we did a rooftop event not too far from here.
Yeah, it's actually Sony Square, the Masson Park. Yeah. So stay up on our social for any of those Sony events. But Sony, thanks so much for hooking up. And don't forget, we got a new Sony display here in the store. So come check it out. And the other thing I got to spiel on is thanks to Gotham Coffee for supplying us today. Cheers, mate. What'd you get?
I got an oat milk latte.
So posh.
Very posh. I don't drink coffee, so.
Oh, really?
No.
Are you going to be flying off the handle now?
Maybe a little bit.
A little bit?
I'm a tea guy. We get into that.
I'm with you. Listen, I just spilled you missed it. I had a huge thing of green tea I just spilled, so it's been a good day so far. Anyway. Guys, if you want, while we're chatting, you check out Dane's work right here. Does a really great portrait work. One thing I take away from your work is it's always impactful. It's not fast food to me. There's always like a depth and a substance to it. And I feel like you're always not just telling a story, but trying to get people to understand a story or a story of someone. So I feel like when you approach things, you're looking at it as a substantial pathway rather than just like, this is pretty.
Yeah. Well, I think you got to go all the way back to why I got into photography to kind of understand that. And I appreciate you saying that because I was a nerd to start,
Shocking.
I used to read a lot. And, growing up in Grenada, my mom worked in the government, so she had like this free subscription of Nat Geo magazines. And I remember just like blowing through all the books I had, all these like fantasy novels and stuff, and just like looking for something else to read. And I found these books. I used to go to our office and found these yellow magazines. I was like, oh, these are pretty. These are pretty photos. I remember seeing like a photo, and I felt like I read an entire novel from a one photo. And I always said in my head, or like, if I want to be able to do this. I've never felt more strongly about something. Or like, if I get a chance to take photos in my life, I want it to be that impactful. The impact I had from watching that photo. I wish I remember what year the magazine was and what photo it was itself, but I just became very obsessed with like just watching pictures and being like, wow, these, especially good ones, and being like, wow, this is deep.
Imagery is a language like anything else, and it'll speak to you. But I think imaging, unlike just like dialogue, is such an interpretation based on so much. Is it the color that hits you first? Is it the tone? Is it the shadow? Is it the look that someone's staring through your soul? Are you noticing the little things like their clothing might be a little torn, or is it that a shiny new ring on them? Like, what are you getting out of it first?
Exactly.
Do you notice it? But I mean, your stuff has like a quiet dynamic. That's what I kind of say. Like if you look at, like as dynamic as this is, I know you crafted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I can feel it. But I just I thought it was really interesting because you're always chasing after stories, and the one you're doing now is the 50 for 50.
Yeah.
So can you just quickly like give me an idea of what 50 for 50 even is?
Well, 50 for 50 Grenadian Echo specifically is a project I've been working on. We just celebrated 50 years of independence as a nation. As I mentioned, I am from Grenada. So 50 years of independence is a big deal. It's kind of like the country's identity of being independent. And 50 years is a short amount of time. But we celebrated 50 years of independence from Britain on February 7th, 2024. So last year I was sitting around and trying to like figure out, I've always wanted to do an impactful project at home, especially as a photographer, because I've been living here for the last almost 13 years. And I always like wanted to go back and do something with this photography skill that I acquired or developed over the years. And a little bit overthinking it, but rightfully so, just if I do step back home and have to do a project, I don't want to just be like, this is something, So a lot of times I went back, like I kind of just focused on taking photos of my family members, which I never really shared, but that meant something to me. But I wanted to do something larger, and the just perfect time, perfect place in my career where I started like falling in love, and we talked about it offline a little bit, where me interviewing people, because I started asking people so many questions while taking their portraits to try to understand what their story was.
Right.
I started documenting it, and I had a project pop up in the middle of the pandemic where I interviewed like 25 people or so, asked them all the same 4 questions, and right after, no matter how they felt, I took their portrait, and I got such a variant of answers. I got people that were 4 minutes long in interviews or 25 minutes long from the same 4 questions.
Yeah.
And their emotions, some people were crying, some people were happy, because it's right before, not only in the middle of the pandemic, it was right before the election. There's so many things happening,
A
lot of protests happening. Yeah. There are concerns, there's fears. So, and that project is still live on my website if you want to check it out. But it pushed me. I was like, can I do something like this at home? And the initial idea for the 50 for 50, and the reason it's called 50 for 50, we did interview way more than 50 people, but the reason it's called 50 for 50 because I wanted to interview 50 people for the 50th anniversary of independence and take their stories and tell and broadcast that to the world, not necessarily just the Grenadians, but to the world, so they could understand a little bit more about what Grenada is as a country, a very small nation. The population of Grenada is around 110,000 people.
Wow.
There's more Grenadians living in New York than on Grenada itself.
That's wild. So 50 people is actually a good sample size of voices.
Yeah, you get very diverse, and there's parts of me that, wish for time and even just money I could have done more. But I think for a starter, just if someone wants to kind of like understand, the goal is to just put together a small sample package that people can just like digest and really understand Grenada, especially if they haven't heard of Grenada. A lot of people, I'll say the word Grenada and like, where?
Right.
And we have a very interesting history. So me interviewing, and we try to like be very mindful of that, try to get as diverse as possible from every walks of life. We try to get people that are street vendors to high office officials. We interviewed the last 2 prime ministers, for example, interviewed the governor general, who's a representative of the crown, and we interviewed someone on the side of the road selling corn.
That's some open doors. I mean, to get prime ministers, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't necessarily hard. I was lucky enough to have those connections through a multitude of people. Like my mom, for example, she worked she's now retiring, I should say. She's on a 5-month vacation, but she's not going back. But she worked as a permanent secretary for like 30-something years. So she helped me connect with a few people that were able to help me connect with a few other people. So that was helpful.
I'm sure you learned a bunch about your country that you probably didn't even realize.
Oh yeah, I think even just from outside of just the history, I think what we it wasn't just me doing the interviews, but what me and my small crew learned, and we were all Grenadian on the ground, it was like how the people felt, opinions of themselves and the country, opinions on independence, and we did get a few deep history dumps, in terms of like what Grenada was like before we gained independence and how things came to be. Because I was born in '92, Grenada got independence in '74, so I was just a product of that, So yeah. I was raised in that, and sometimes you never really question what is and what it was like before. But there's a lot of things, and not to spoil for the people that do want to see it themselves, not to spoil too much, but even just like how we navigated, post-colonial rule and why we were so compelled to get independence and what was happening at the time in Grenada or the nation in general. We have a lot of that information that popped up through interviewing people.
No, and I think you have a very documentative or narrative heart about you. I mean, even I wanted to pull this one up because this was just like when we had the fires,
right?
So it's like even when this was happening, you're like, I gotta kind of show people that aren't here what is happening here for a second. This is nothing crazy. It's just the Canadian fires that are causing us to look like LA for 5 seconds. So
the first photo was interesting to me because that woman had a mask on. It reminded me of the pandemic.
Yep.
But if you look in the background, if you zoom in onto the billboard in the back, and you go up, it's like it was almost like foreshadowing in a way. It's like a wild capture, in my opinion. But yeah, I think I don't going back to one of your first statements about, you know, it seems thoughtful. I don't shoot as much as most photographers, maybe. I don't know, because I do other things. I'm also, as you mentioned, I work in architecture. So when I do get to shoot, it's very intentional. Yeah. You know, and I try to make it that way because I always separated the two careers, and photography is it's a everyday lifestyle for me. However, it's a part-time job. But so when I do get to do it, it's like I could afford to take my time.
Yeah, I think that's also key. Like so we're kind of I have to shoot like almost every day, and you get jaded. You get a little bit like that camera gets heavier and heavier every day sometimes, and you're like, then you start losing your like connection to whatever you're creating.
Exactly.
But if you have the ability to have that breathing room and look forward to getting to it, I mean, look, I'm not gonna take anything for granted. Like, it's amazing I get to shoot for a living. I'm not gonna say
no,
that.
it's
beautiful. It's a job. It's a job.
Yeah.
But I think you're finding projects that you genuinely care about and be able to have that selection as opposed to, cool, I have to shoot 500 corporate headshots of guys that don't want their picture taken today so I can pay my rent. Like, or you go after a project that you know is going to last and have impact and people finding it and connecting and then building from that. It's pretty awesome.
But either the grass is always greener, right?
Yeah.
It's either way, it's tough because I've been battling with, and maybe from external forces and even internally myself, just why do I do it full time? Like, why do I still? I mean, I have a degree in architecture, so I should use it as well. But
you're an architect in New York. I mean,
it's always a thing where, you know, follow your passions and have that pay you. You know, like you don't feel like it's a job if you're passionate about it. You know, it's your dream,
right?
And it's one of the things, I won't say the only thing I'm passionate about, but definitely one of the things I'm more passionate about, you know, in terms of like photography and storytelling. So I'm always struggling to try to find the balance of what that looks like. And for me, in terms of what balance look like, I should say. And sometimes I'm like, I should just be doing that all day, every day. But I do feel, sometimes I do get to the point of feeling that burnout. I'm like, that's why.
Yeah, burnout is no joke. But there's a difference between burnout because it's a job and burnout because you've been pushing yourself to get to a place with the creative.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, if you're doing this as more of a job where you're shooting things that aren't heart and soul, you know, you're doing things just to get money in the door. It's a different type of burnout, I think. Creative burnout is a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost feel like you'll never get out of it, and then you're wondering if like you went too far into it. Am I too invested? There's so I'm sure people in the chat can relate to this.
Yeah, speaking of the chat, there's a question in the chat. I'm not sure if
Ken right here. So, so go for it.
Yeah, well, the question is, how long did it take to complete, you know, an in-depth project like this? You know, I'm assuming, Ken, you're talking about so conceptually, I would say it, you know, I've been thinking about it for a year before actual, maybe like 6 months before actual production. But we filmed and photographed for 2 weeks during Carnival, which is in August. So anyone that wants to go to Grenada Carnival is in August. They don't pay me to say this. And then we went back. The goal was to get it all done in those 2 weeks. And then we hit a production glitch, or it was not really a glitch, but we couldn't get students during that period because they were all at home. Or kids, I should say. And then to find the parents to get signed off, we've not seen kids on the street. We can't just use them in a dock without permission, you know? We dedicated an extra week to go back in November and get more stories to kind of like have a well-rounded like base for content.
And you got to commit too. I mean, when you say go, that's you, a crew, I mean, you want to get it to the end. Otherwise, it's all for nothing. And if you don't finish it, it was kind of like,
Yeah.
you know.
And it's a small team, you know, on every day. Like, so it started off with 4 of us, and then it in the second trip, it was only the 3 of us, you know, so me, my DP, and a producer. And that's it, you know. And then more days, the producer, she had like a full-time job herself, you know, so she only could commit so many things from the on-the-ground recording of things. But it was just me and my DP going and sitting in people's houses and interviewing people and taking their portraits and stuff like that. So it was like we got to get this.
Yeah,
you know,
it's interesting because I've watched you over the for a while, and you definitely approach portraiture. I feel the way we should approach portraiture, where you're getting into people's brains and kind of talking to them, connecting, and then you're worrying about shooting.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where like your soul comes from, is like this connection point, which is probably why you're into professions where you're talking to people so much now. You don't want to talk, but you want to connect.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a connecting thing, because, you know, it's so I'll tell you a funny story. So when I moved here back in 2011, I'm from, again, reminding everyone, especially people that just came in, I'm from Grenada. Small population, small country. So you can't walk past anyone in Grenada. Like, you know them or not, you have to say good morning. You can't walk into a store without saying good morning, good afternoon.
You'll just be the town jerk. You just got to live with that.
I mean,
own it.
No. Your parents would whoop you. Like, it's like, you can't, like, they would hear about this. It's like, you're so disrespectful. So you can't walk past anyone and not say anything. And like, or it'll be very a standout thing. And so much so, funny enough, Grenadians say they say it twice. So you say morning. You don't just say good morning and just kill it. You say it twice. You know. So if I walk in the store, I can say good afternoon. I double down. So when I moved here and I was like just walking around the streets in New York, I remember saying good morning to someone, and the response I got was, I don't have any money.
Yep. Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. I just stayed.
I was born and raised here. The second someone I don't know is trying to talk to me, they're trying to get something from me. That is my whole response.
Exactly.
I mean, it really is a product of where a culture if you've been raised in the same mindset the whole way, and you're in a small area and you feel like it's more of a community rather than like a city you live in, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
You know, here people came and gathered here. Grenada, it's your blood.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big difference. I feel. Well, actually, what am I saying? New Yorkers, we totally think it's our blood. We totally think.
Yeah. No, it is. But it's New York is an interesting place because New York houses so many immigrants. It's like a hub for a bunch of different cultures coming in, and it makes its own culture in itself from that.
Yeah.
You know, so I do relate from that in terms of like New York probably I don't think one has an older history than another, but you know, it's like more untapped. It's like it's literally the same people have been here and their ancestors, you know, versus people coming in and changing what that would look like, you know. So,
but it's a sharing point of perspectives, which is what I've always loved about New York. Is everyone's so different here, but ideas formulate and evolve here because you're hearing from so many different people from where they came from, what they dealt with, and so you're not stuck in this bubble assuming the world. You're hearing the world.
Exactly.
And I really love that about this city, and I feel very privileged to have been raised in it. But talking about New York and you being an architect, first of all, did you start shooting architecture? Is that where you started?
No.
Come on, man. Give me the typical story.
Okay, no. So,
oh, this building was beautiful. Stayed there with a 4x5. No 4x5.
No. So actually, when I was while I was in school, you know, one of the things that I don't know if most people know, but it's like as an international student, you pay more for tuition than a local, which is fair. You know, but I always wanted to take. So I had remember my loan was like almost for the exact amount of credits I needed. But I always was watching like the photography courses that happened in my school. I'm like, damn, I want to do that. But I was like, I can't justify taking an extra $1,000 just to do a photography course. So I remember my first internship. Like I had a friend that was selling a camera for $100, and at the time it was a Canon 400D with a kit lens.
Wow, that's a while ago.
$400. And the funny thing, it didn't work. So he swapped it for a Nikon D60. So that was my first working camera.
All right.
And it was on my internship. I used to work at Brooklyn Grange at the time. And for who doesn't know, like Brooklyn Grange is like a rooftop farm here in New York City. They have 3 of them now, you know. And I was doing like design build stuff for other clients, but I would be on this beautiful farm just with flowers and people coming by. So I started shooting that and the workers. I was just shooting the workers as they were working and just like practicing skills. I would shoot anything. I'll shoot ants, I'll shoot birds. It wasn't, but it didn't start off as like, I want to shoot architecture. I mean, I did.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like and actually I think I even avoided architecture because I was in it so heavily.
You're trying to get the separation.
Yeah. And that wasn't the reason I took up a camera in the first place. I wanted to tell stories, but I didn't know how to use the camera. So I shot everything to learn how to use a camera. Yeah. So I put myself in like situations where I was shooting like as most of these kids were doing at the time, like rooftops, or I was shooting light trails or stars. Like actually, funny story. I eventually upgraded to I think is a 700D Nikon. No, D700.
D700.
This is the crop sensor.
The first full frame was D700.
Or 7,000. So the 7,000 the crop sensor. Yeah, so the 7,000, but I couldn't afford a lens. So what I used to do, I used to come to Adorama on a Thursday or Friday and rent a lens for the weekend. And every weekend I would take the couple bucks I had in my bank account. I would go somewhere with a group of friends. So we would like drive to
that's ambition. Wow.
Delaware Water Gap, or like drive to Maine for a couple hours just to come back, just to shoot, you know, because we all had jobs at the time. So like the weekends were the best time. And we wanted to practice, so we were just like, how do we get better at this, you know? And now Monday morning, I'll come drop the lens back off, you know? And for people that don't know, it's a day rate. So you could, you pay the day rate for the weekend,
right,
for the lenses. And I remember it was
the extra day is what basically happens. Yeah,
so I think I had like I had a couple of days, 3 days of using this lens for a day.
So one day,
exactly.
Yep.
And it was great too, because like I had they didn't actually charge my card they would put a hole in your card, but didn't actually go through.
Yep.
Because it was the weekend. So by the time I brought it back on Monday, I was like, I only paid the $20 or the $18 that, you know, but I had to do that for over a year.
Oh, that's like the loophole.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of ambition, first of all, even like go source the lens, then go find a place to go and dedicate your weekend to it. So you definitely absolutely wanted to do this.
No, there was definitely a drive there. Even so, even when I was out of work through architecture in between jobs, I was doing it. And I remember like even family members being like, "Are you okay? You spent all this money at like in school and you're more passionate about shooting. I don't even hear you talk about architecture." I'm like, yeah, well,
I do that all week. You know, they don't get it.
No, and people were trying to like stare me into like, listen, you need to be doubling down here. I need you to be the best architect in the world. I'm like, oh, it's kind of.
You're allowed to do more than one thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I used to do that for like over a year before I committed to a lens, because it was like to buy a lens, you need to know what you wanted at the time, because I was
system you're in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just testing out lenses, you know, at the time just through Nikon. So every weekend I would get a different lens. That was also the thing.
That's super fun.
That's
pretty fun. Yeah, that's cool. But do you think that things like the architecture helped you like recognize leading lines, perspective points, geometrics,
composition,
all that joint?
Even just, I think like many of the art firms kind of like merge at some point, right? I think for you to understand design, because photography is part design as well. It's organic, but it's like, or it's all math. You could say
it's not all math, but it is heavily math. I mean, yeah, the spiral,
you know,
all that junk. Yeah,
so if you're really trying to understand design and concepts and stuff like that, if you pay attention, I think you can get the fundamentals really quickly. You might not get the soul, but the fundamentals of photography, you can get it.
That's the hardest part, I think, for new photographers, is finding the substance, like we've been talking about, but point of view, sticking to that point of view, being confident that you have that point of view, and then trying to generate interest of other people to see your point of view.
Yeah.
So when you talk about like soul of it, you have to find your connection to it first, you know, and it's funny that you kind of went the opposite direction. A lot of people end up in photography because they're shooting whatever they've already been in.
Exactly.
Like I started in BMX and skateboarding because I was riding and I was just shooting my friends. You were like, I'm doing this, but I want to go do that. So you're kind of jumping between worlds here. It's kind of interesting to hear it, this origin story, your villain origin story, you know?
Well, I think it makes you, well, I don't know if this is all in hindsight, but I think I know now it made me a better person overall, because I was developing two things at one time, and when they came together, they were better.
Yeah.
Because I was doing it separately. You know, I don't believe I would have been the photographer I was today if I did it because of architecture or just focused on architecture.
Right.
You know, it would have been very different.
If we could shoot real estate for some quick money, you know.
I get asked to do it all the time.
Are you kidding me? I did that for a little bit. What a mundane job that is.
Yeah.
I am not into it. But hey, if you're into it, you love it. Okay, enjoy it.
No, it's a great gig, and we all like to see pretty things. You know, especially sell me on the building.
I'm talking to a guy who shoots zombies and aliens. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I my thing is like I get really bored quick, and it's really seeing beautiful things shot beautifully, cool. I'm more into what about them is awkward or off, or what is a flaw that makes someone want to look at it that much longer. Because I think, like, if you think about like horror movies in general, why are you watching this?
Yeah.
Because there's something that's like stirring something up inside people that they're just trying to feel something. And I think when you get that out of the weird, out of the what you would think is ugly, you know, is it ugly or are you looking at it wrong? Now you bring in your point of view with the camera.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a tough thing, man. Even like I always question, like, I know this is blue. You know this is blue if you're not colorblind. But do we even see it the same way?
I know. I say it all the time.
And I would never know. So you could describe it to me, but until we have like something that we can actually map onto the brain and figure out if all humans see and interpret color and light the same way, we're kind of just training because that's the interesting thing about being colorblind, right? It's only time you pick it up is like when they can't differentiate between two different colors.
Right.
It's like, oh, you don't see it how I see it. But even if you're not fully colorblind, is this as saturated for you as it is for me, or
does this color even really exist? Do you want to get existential?
I mean, yeah, we can get.
It's like, what's going on? You know? But no, I always think that too. Now, instead of figuring that out, we get internet firestorms of is the dress blue or gold, and that's our philosophical conversation on this.
That took the internet by storm. Wow.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things take the internet by storm. We were just talking about that Cybertruck for like 45 minutes this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that people get wrapped up in are amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it speaks to a lot, right? It's like where we are as humanity. You know, a lot of things are dark, but if we can like sit and argue about a dress for a month, I think as much as the world is in a dark place and we can highlight those things, we're kind of, for human existence, we're in a very peaceful time.
I think we're striving so hard to get our minds off of it that we're talking about a dress. Like, that to me shows how gloom it got.
Yeah. Well, I don't think things are more gloom than it was in the past, and I think it's a fact. Things were very dark before, but I think what we exposed to right now is the access to information.
Yes, it's faster and more available, and our generation probably is living what past generations had over a lifetime in like a few years.
Yeah, because you see it all. You know, I remember so many websites that you go on Twitter today or X today, or I remember back in the day when WorldStar was like really popular. You just seen people fighting all the time, and it was kind of like you can't look away. I don't know if this was a thing here at the time, but when email blasts were a big thing, and viral of some big accident would happen, and people just put in an email and send it to like everyone in their contact list.
Oh no.
That was a thing that I had to go through in the early 2000s, where first time in an email there'll be an accident, something gruesome or gory, and how it would be nothing related to you in general. It would just be someone found a video and it was like, oh my God, everyone needs to see this. And then you put it, and then everyone would do the same thing. So everyone saw this one random video via email. They would just put it in an email and just send it to as many people as they can, and just keep sending it. And then everyone would do that until it was awful.
That sounds awful.
But that's how fast. And I think it's also going back to, we had this conversation offline a little bit. It's like when it was hard for information to travel.
Yep.
So once we got access to it, it doesn't matter what we're talking about. We just want to talk. We just want to send it. And unfortunately, it goes to darker places first before it goes, because no one wants to see, hey, guys, look at this puppy. Like, look at this flower I found in my garden.
I share that all the time on my stories. I'm like, look at this beaver. It's amazing.
Well, it gets more clicks.
I don't care about clicks.
But you don't care. But it's like the interest of people. And I think one of the weird things I've like, and this would go
do it
left real quick. But one of the weird things I do as a person on the internet,
what else are you?
you never know. You never know. One of the weird things I do is like I just observe human behavior on the internet. So it's like, and that's the only thing that's that weird.
That's
but
new school people watching. That's all that is.
But I like to watch specifically how much people try to get attention in comments of popular posts. So people get a rush. So much so, especially on YouTube where you can edit your comments.
Oh, forget it.
People, you ever go to a YouTube video and someone says like, thanks for the 10,000 likes on my comment? You ever seen that?
No.
Oh my God. So go on any popular video and go see what the popular comment is. And most times they might have like 200,000 likes. Every now and then that person's going to come back like, oh my God, guys, thank you for liking my comment so much. And they would edit it and say that in their comments. Now that I say, you probably won't be able to unsee it. But it brings my it brought the level of it. I started like analyze. It happens on Instagram. You can't edit on Instagram, but it happens on Instagram too, where I've seen the same people just
delete it.
Not even just that. Like a comment will go viral. Someone will see that on one post and they would steal it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's posted in other posts.
Yeah.
And it's like, we as people, we just kind of like to bring it back to where we initially was talking about. We as people like attention, and in whatever form. So that email thing, the reason they used to do it was like, it wasn't just to share what was happening so everyone could stay abreast with what's happening in the world. It's more like, I sent it first.
Yeah, but do you think people really like attention, or were we raised now that we feel emptiness if we didn't get the attention from what we have now? Like, so before, like my mom probably grew up not caring about having attention on everything, every little thing. Here's what I'm eating. Here's what I'm eating for breakfast. But you raised on sharing your breakfast post every day, and people going, where is that? Then you're having a conversation. Now you're social. I think that leaves a hole in people when they don't have that in this era.
Well, I think it's both, because I do think we like attention as humans. You know, we like to be seen. You know, like
I have no idea what you're talking about.
we're as much as
whatever, man.
As much as think about nature. Like think about what we do. Like go look at birds.
You look at birds. I got enough bird guys in this chat. How many? This guy shoots birds. I'm sure. Like what?
look at all these random things that we've evolved to garner attention for survival, you know, for mating, reproduction, all these different things. Yeah. We want to be seen. Like none of these beings that are born just want to like sit in the dark and just be like, I just want to be here. Well, some of them do, but
well, I think part of attention is validation. It's not that just want to be like, hey, I exist, look at me, but they're almost like, look at how cool this hotel I'm staying at is. Look at where I'm going. Look what I'm doing this weekend. And I think that's where Instagram, for me personally, growing up, I didn't really think about traveling so much because it wasn't a thing in my head because it's expensive. Mm-hmm. But then when it became more of a part of my career and then Instagram came up, I was like, wow, the world is really a small place.
Yeah.
These people I didn't think would ever go anywhere in Australia now, they're over visiting. It's like, it's not that hard to go travel, you know?
And attention, or one validation and attention is not a bad thing. No. And I don't want to get down in that rabbit hole and be like, oh, these people are just posting their food online. Like, look at them.
He's judging you. I just want you to know that.
No. It's more like the thing where we do things for survival. So like and we evolve in a way, in a very fast pace with the internet. You know, we're very different from the humans that existed in 1920. But it's like the things that we do because we think we have to do it to be relevant or survive in the world. It's like we would adapt to doing that, you know. And it's so interesting that you brought up like your mom versus like what we experience today. Is that your mom wasn't even, I don't know what existed in your mom's era per se, or she was from New York as well?
Yeah.
Oh, what was happening back then? But if you go back and look at like adverts and what society was like, that what people were wearing, why did they wear that?
Yeah.
You know, why did they try to fit in? Like, what was popular?
Well, you know what's funny is I always remember this story from my mom that the Son of Sam was happening when in her era. So she was like worried about her hair color because of the MO that guy had. And so if you thought about if that happened in this era, she'd have all the information in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But she had to ask the girl in the corner. She had to wait for the news to come on that night. Like, that's how they pieced it together. And it took probably what a story would have taken like a week or so was the whole year. You know, so I think when you realize, I don't know if we're designed to handle as much as we're hit with at the rate we're hit with.
Well, we're going to,
now.
I think we're going to, I don't think me and you are designed to do that, but the future generations would be prepared for it because it's kind of going to be the norm.
Well, they have no attention span as it is.
Exactly.
They can't get through a 1 minute video. Like, oh my God, this is taking forever to get to the end.
Oh yeah, it's tough, you know, to sit through anything. Like most kids that are younger and age 15, they want to be YouTubers or streamers, right?
Oh yeah.
And they have multiple monitors for Christmas, and they're managing so many different things at once. So they're on their phone playing a game while they're also talking in the chat.
Yep.
I mean, look what we're doing right now.
I know.
You know, it's like
aware.
talking to the chat. They're answering people in the background, and it's like,
yeah, but you know what though? How often or not do you come across like these stories of streamers saying one wrong thing because they weren't ever mature enough to start with this much attention, or they didn't even think about consequences of things that, you know, not just watch what you say, but watch how you think, watch how you develop as a person.
But I agree with that, but I don't at the same time, because like I'm more forgiving as a person, because like for me in the world, like what is like we all, a 14-year-old needs to be media trained.
Yeah. If you have, if you're a 14-year-old that has 20,000 people plugging into your world, I think, that's as many people as an adult. So you have the same responsibility. It's like being tried as an adult if you do a serious crime.
Yeah.
So I feel like you have a kid, right?
I do.
So you almost have to like get them ready for all the attention and how to be perceived to a public at this point. It's getting quick. I mean, 13 years old, they're flying, man.
Yeah. I mean, look,
I'm not a parent that I know of, so I can't speak. But
it's a tough one. But I always go back to parenting is important. You know, it's like, I think there's so much you could do as a parent. There's so much you're in control of, because the world is going to raise your kid. You know, they're only at home X amount of time. But you have to instill core, and you have to check in. You have to be available. You have to be there for them to kind of guide them through the world, because they're going to get exposed to random nonsense that like
it's the exposure. I think it's kind of like, well, how are you going to react to this? So when they're getting these dopamine rushes of getting the attention, how do you deal with when you don't have the attention?
Right.
And stuff like that, which I'm not sure we've ever had to deal with kids being rock stars from their living room. Yeah. You know, it
started with like viral videos on YouTube, right? Yeah. Remember Charlie Bit My Finger? Remember that?
He's not. Wow. That's like Fred era.
Yeah, if you those kids are probably teenagers now. You know, but I remember like looking, because they went on the news a couple times after the fact, but their college was paid for from that video. You know, and they had to go on talk shows. They had to like think about how many kids Ellen was bringing on their shows, or Steve Harvey, or any of these people, like a day. I mean, those things were, and it happened more often because of the internet and how viral people were going on the internet. But streaming, I mean, it's all, I don't know where it's going to end up in like a couple of years, but you know, we've seen a few people grow up from virality, you know.
Justin Bieber, right? He was discovered on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
But he built a career outside of that. But there's kids that are literally living from that gaming share. And listen, whatever you're passionate about, whatever. What I'm trying to say is, at younger ages, we have to prepare this generation for that level of 40,000 eyes on you every time you do something. Yeah,
I mean, it's wild, right? Because what was the first like intense gaming phenomenon outside of streaming, outside people watching you? Was it World of Warcraft, where people never left the house for like?
Oh, do you remember Second Life?
No.
Second Life literally was Second Life. Like
Yeah.
people left their marriages for people they met. Second Life. There's a documentary on it, and it's
was
just,
it like Sims like?
yeah, but you could actually make a living in there. There's like an in-game currency. So let's say you're an architect, you could actually build houses in there and then sell these houses for their. And now we're doing it meta, right? That
Yeah,
people
like
could buy.
metaverse.
And then they could actually translate that in-game currency to actual currency. So people never left.
Yeah.
And it's kind of wild when you have a world where you can do anything, but then why couldn't you say that to the real world? You could do anything. You just got to put in the work. Well, I can just turn this on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, GTA
GTA.
adapted the same thing. You don't have to leave, but it's like
GTA, right? GTA 6 trailer dropped. It is like the most watched thing of all time.
oh no, it's going to be a problem when it actually comes out. It's like
It's going to be bananas.
yeah,
I mean, and I'm I'm above it all. Of course, I'm going to play that game.
of course,
Are you kidding
of
me?
course. Like I mean, even five lasted for such a long time.
They were
Five lasted for such a long time in terms of how relevant it is. Still is today.
it was revolutionary. I mean,
Yeah.
to be able to change characters like that, you had cell phones. I mean,
Bro.
everything was just like.
They really, and I had a friend that worked for Rockstar, but they really did a really good job in that game.
Well, my friend is the community manager, and she literally is the one that's like running the events and like giving out the currency like that. The stories, the things that like you'd swear they're talking about, it's actually happening. you know, oh, they robbed that casino. You know, like, you remember that whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It's really crazy, and now we got Apple giving us goggles to wear while walking in the street.
Yeah.
So we're just getting further and further to this.
I remember I was in college when the Google Glass came out.
I remember that too. Yeah, $1,500 for those glasses.
Yeah, and I think it was ahead of its time. To see where we are today. But like what you could do with that versus what you could do with the Apple, or even the Meta Quest, it's
I think
night
there's
and day.
two pathways, right? I think the Google Glass was trying to add on to our world. Like
Mm-hmm.
you could put on those glasses and it'll give you a distance measurement of where you're looking or something.
Yeah.
But those they want you to live in it.
No, yeah, they want you to stay. It's. I mean, listen, it's tough, man. Like the metaverse, like the AR VR worlds. It's tough. It's definitely tough. But to pass through, I haven't tried it. I want to try it to see how I feel about it first. But heard it's heavy.
Is anyone in the chat on any VR? Are you guys Oculus? Are you talking about Apple? Did you guys jump in on that day one Apple early adopters? You know what I mean? I don't care how heavy it is. I don't want to not live in my world.
Yeah.
So everyone kept pushing this whole like, no, that's the future of video games. Like when I play games, I just want it to be here and I'm here.
Yeah.
I don't look like I'm not trying. It's immersive enough. I'm good. I don't feel a need to have a second life somewhere else when I can't even, I'm struggling on this life. You know what I mean? There's people that can't even afford this world and we're selling virtual houses to them in another world.
Yeah. Well, it's what's the word? Dystopian at best, right? It's like people.
We're leaving this planet in a different way.
Yeah.
I
don't know. It's like I have mixed feelings about it, because I'm big on
advancing.
I'm big on advancing, but I'm also big on. Again, I'm from a small, beautiful little island in the Caribbean.
We heard you. Okay.
I love, and like growing up, it was funny because like growing up, it's like we would get everything years after, even like referencing to like the cinema, for example. A movie would come out in 2020, and we would probably get it in 21, late 21, and it'd be like we just had to like become accustomed to being like behind or slower. The internet kind of changed how all that operated.
But did it make you appreciate it more?
Oh yeah, we were just slow. It's just way slower. So I balance it too, where it's like, oh, like, you know what, it's kind of nice not to have everything instant. Like I was just home and someone was asking me like, yo, do you gotta order something from Amazon? I was like, no, you can't. You cannot order anything from Amazon. And you probably could, but it won't come tomorrow as you're accustomed in the States or any bigger country. And then you have to pay a lot to clear it at the customs.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So it's like, you don't want to do that. Please don't do that. So you just kind of have to get accustomed to living life in the present
that community.
Yeah. And not trying to like rush and.
Well, it's also getting to be able to, one, be okay without all the options that are ever available ever. It's like, I need to buy socks and there's like 6 billion companies selling you a sock on Amazon. Or you go to that local store, You have a connection to talk to someone for a second. You support that business. Crazy, I know. Kind of like a camera store. And you actually have a connection to it, and you actually get a chance to have a dialogue and make a different decision and take a breath.
Yeah, I remember the first time I ordered something online. It was in 2020. It was 2011.
How do you? What do you have a log? Everything is like I remember the.
No,
first
but
time.
because I moved here
Oh, that's true.
in 2011, so I remember, and it was like a T-shirt from Hollister.
Whoa, you needed it that bad? You had to order a T-shirt. Huh?
I had to buy clothes for school, but
All
like
right.
it was the first time me trying this out, and I was like, wait, is this going to show up
Yep.
in a couple of days? That was wild.
I didn't order clothes online because I was like, if I can't try it on, how do I know? That was my whole mentality forever.
Yeah.
You know, I was ordering bike parts. I remember having a call. If anyone rides out there, do you remember Trend or Empire or Dan's Comp? Calling them and being like, having a conversation to get to an end point of what I needed. Now you're like, I guess I'll try, and if I don't like it, I'll just return it. And like, that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's the wild part. And it's like there's so many things to that where it's like I'm stuck between I love going into the store and doing it myself and trying on things, whatever. And then the convenience of it, you kind of like can't deny like how, because there's a lot of local stores. Like, for example, I've been trying to find these like olives in my supermarket.
Okay.
And I had the guy order them for me. He keeps saying like, yeah, I'll get it. And it's like, I want to buy it from you. I don't want to buy it online.
Yeah.
It's been a month. He can't get it. So it's like specific olives, and I can go online and buy them, and I know what I'll get, you know. So there's a convenience factor, and also too, like the internet and the kind of connects the world, because a lot of communities don't have access to a lot of things. You know, we in New York City, we're spoiled because we have both, right? I can go outside and get it. I can go online and get it. Think about the communities that don't have it
I
outside.
gotta tell you, it's becoming less and less going out there. Like we're looking at an empty Bed Bath and Beyond out there. Like general stores of things are kind of fleeting a little bit when you want to go grab something. Like, yeah, you can hit Chinatown, but you're going to go to a bunch of small shops to find something that's a little credible.
Yeah.
Or you just don't have it. I mean, it's a little discerning. What was that? I bought a used RB67 in 1998 on eBay. That is brave. I mean,
Was it
how
braver?
much is that shipping?
Wait, was that braver today or then?
Well, I'll say then it had way less use on it.
Exactly.
For one, you know. But eBay scared the hell out of me when I was younger. Like you were like, I don't know if this is going to show up and even work, and it was all honor system. It was young. It was
And
still.
now I have like a verify system that
Right.
you can trust.
I remember when PayPal first came out, I was like, really? I give them money? Like,
It's funny how much things we've lived through, right? In terms of the development of technology.
bro, we're jumping into cars with strangers just because Uber says that that's the car.
Yeah.
I mean, we're literally
Yeah.
just doing everything our parents told us don't.
Or-
I'm waiting for the Run with Scissors app because it says I can do it. I'll
Yeah.
just click on that and run.
No, what about Uber Pool?
That freaks. I can't do it. Can't
You
do
know?
it.
That was even stranger than the regular stranger thing.
Well,
you
think
know?
about this. If that person is already trying to save money on this, they're a certain type of person. You're wondering, what's this car ride going to be like?
Well, I used to have a lot of fun in Uber Pool because, again, I was a college kid and I was broke.
Nah,
so I was
I ain't
like,
doing it. I didn't even have one when I was in college.
I wouldn't, you know, how old are you? You put on the internet?
You know, man, I used to like you. You know, man, I used to like you. You need 2 phones. You're so important. So-
Never mind. You can scratch this. This is not live, guys. You can edit this out. No, but it's the world's I think it's entertaining. You know,
the first time I heard about Uber, I was like, "What?"
yeah,
And then I was like, "You're calling a what?" Wait, this just came out. Then I'm thinking, you know how many times I called Bushwick car service when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and the shadiest car on earth,
Yeah.
which had no tracking. The guy could have taken me anywhere. Had a garbage radio. Remember those? Like, you know,
you know the one thing I would say about us humans, and I'll tell you a very funny story after, is that we don't really like change as much. We're very anti-change, very
creatures of habit.
very, very resistant to change. And it doesn't matter if it makes, so like in retrospect, you can compare the two and be like, well, it's not that far off, but you're so accustomed to having that stranger with a radio come to your house. You're like, screw these strangers. Who are they? I would say Uber removed the service because the people that actually did it before was very like they really believed in the service, and like now like if this guy gets out of his car to open the door for you, it's like it's a stretch.
Yeah.
They barely would cross or turn the car around for you to cross the street. They won't do much, but that's what happens when you have a bunch of people doing it just for money versus for the passion of it. The accessibility of anyone could do it. It just kind of takes the passion out of it. But I remember I went to England one time in my life, and it actually was for work. I was going to like WeWork summer camp, which is, if anyone knows about WeWork summer camp, look it up. It was a
summer camp,
bro.
What is that? So
WeWork was my client at the time, and then they used to have this. Honestly, they used to throw a party. They used to throw this big party for a couple of days in a remote location, and this time it was in the countryside of England. And I remember going, and my flight got canceled. It was canceled, so I had to get a new flight. So my initial travel commitment to get there through getting a bus that they provided all got like derailed. So I had to figure out how to get it myself. And I was like, I'm young. I have phones. I could figure out this Uber is Lyft. I've never been to England before, but I was like, I could find my way. It's Google Maps.
Right.
So I tried and I did that. I saw there's a train station near to where I was going. I was like, I'll just take the train there and take an Uber. And I got out there, and the sun was starting to set and stuff like that, but I wasn't nervous. It was the middle of summer too. I was in shorts. I had like, I forgot the actual town, but it was like the countryside of England somewhere.
Yeah, it's sparse.
When I looked up on the map, it was like a 15-minute car ride, but an hour and a half walk. And I have luggage with me to go to this remote. So once I got there, I realized that Uber doesn't exist in the countryside of England, or Lyft, or any of these services, right? So I started starting to sweat a little bit. I remember I found a taxi stand on the map that was like 10 minutes away. So I walked to the taxi stand on this dirt road, just going to it. Got to the taxi stand. It was like a little hut. This guy sitting behind bars, just watching God knows what on his computer. And I was trying to talk to him, he ignored me the entire time. And this man, he was like, yeah, I'll give you a ride. But I told him I only had US dollars on me. And he was like, he just closed his door. Yep. Got back, and he was like, he wouldn't take me. So I had to started walking on the side of the highway in this country I've never been, with luggage, not knowing where I'm going. And eventually a stranger stopped and was like, and I kid you not, he stopped and he was like, are you lost? And he stopped, and the reason he stopped, he was like, I'm one of the only black people that live in this area, so I know you're not from here.
Nice.
And he stopped and he was like, wherever you're going, I'll give you a ride. And he gave me a ride to the camp where it was, But speaking of strangers in cars, I just wanted to tell you that story.
I get it. It's kind of crazy where we kind of, in this world, we think that like everything is everywhere for anything we need whenever, because it's been like instilled in us with the phones or whatever. But I remember when we were in Paris, we had like one Uber driver in the whole place. And then when we called him to get out of there, it was the same guy. I've never had the same Uber guy twice. But but then we're dependent on phones. Like when I was in the UK recently, my phone blew up and I couldn't even get my plane tickets. I couldn't verify my existence as a human. I couldn't get the 4-pin code, nothing. I didn't exist because I didn't have my phone working.
Yeah. So
there's that.
Someone asked me where in the UK was. I wish I remembered, but
it's a hillside.
It's a hillside somewhere. If I take my phone out, which I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do, but if I take my phone out and zoom in to the map, I might be able.
What do you think? There's laws here?
I don't know, man.
Chilling on mics, bro.
I brought you some treats, and you can't eat it on camera.
Do you guys want me to literally eat on camera? Because I think
don't
when
do that.
Streamers do that, I'm like, really? You couldn't take a break? I got to listen to your horse face, nom, 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 What? Mukbangs? Mukbangs are disgusting. Mukbangs are the most. I don't know. This just shows the human behavior I'll never understand of like why people would watch that. I don't know. I was not meant for this world.
Listen, to each his own, man.
You want to watch someone eat a giant pile of food?
No.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm fine with not doing that. If London's over here, I remember.
What if your kid grows up to be a mukbang star? Canadian food, it's okay.
No.
Come on, it'll bring eyes to the culture.
Oh my God. I mean, listen, I'm all for like you being happy with whatever you choose to do, you know, and I think that's like a tough thing about being a parent is like, I feel like as a parent, like you're curating, but you're trying to just
let them do their thing.
Yeah, like you don't want to. I don't want to be too hands-on in terms of like, you know, I can't find this, by the way. I'll figure this out another time. DM me. I'll find it and send it to you. But it's like me personally, my philosophy on parenting is like hands-on, hands-off, right? It's like you have to guide them. We have to let them navigate the world and figure out things for themselves.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and it's a tough thing because I remember when someone early on, like, you know, even before he was born, someone was asking me, like, what do you want him to be? I'm like, what? Like, wait, what?
You shouldn't dictate anything. Like,
yeah, like whatever he wants, you know, like
let him find out who he is first.
Exactly, whatever he wants to do, and like I don't even have the answer for myself. Like, why would I try to tell someone what to be in the world?
Look, one of the biggest things I'm grateful about my parents for, as like crazy as my dad is and all this stuff, they never told me to stop doing this. They could have every time I wasn't making money, every time it got hard, and they never told. I wrecked their basement building a dark room multiple times. Never told me to stop doing this, but they definitely like, you should have a backup. Why don't you put in some MTA applications? You never know. They might need a guy, you know? And I think about that MTA application all the time. So. But it
sets you up for life.
You want them
dark job though.
You want them to be secure, but you what kind of a life is the life they don't want to live?
Yeah, I think I just want my kid to be happy.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even know if security is necessarily. Personally, yes. You know, because I think in this modern time, like security is part of happiness. You know, but if I had to think about it, I think happiness comes first versus security. You know, I hope to make sure that I'm set up where he could be secure and he could be whatever he wants. You know.
Yeah. Well, I think there's nothing. First of all, we're moving so fast that like, what is security anymore? Things just like resources permit, but.
No, security might look at like, do you have enough Bitcoin?
Right. Oh gosh, don't even. Well, actually, let's talk about that for a second.
Oh shit.
We were talking about NFTs a while ago with you.
Okay.
And first of all, were you hesitant to get into NFTs? How do you feel it panned out, and where do you think we are with it now?
Yes. So first question, was I hesitant? Yes. I think with anything, I think NFTs for what it is, you know, is, you know, a non-fungible token. We were talking about also like the trendiness of things. I think NFTs are important to the world, just having something on a digital ledger that's non-fungible.
I think only digital media is important. Yeah.
But I didn't initially, when the concept of NFTs came about onto the blockchain, I didn't think it was going to be art. You know, I didn't have the foresight to be like, art is going to be big on this. I actually thought it was going to be real estate. Okay, you think about you think about not being able to copy something. It's like, oh, like if I can get my deed as an NFT for my house, or any government thing that's like you can't you know, you can't copy it or change it. You know, like getting my deed on a piece of paper with a stamp, like I can copy that whenever. I mean, obviously, like you could verify it and stuff like that. But I thought that's where it was going to like push the technology to what it needed to be faster. And the art thing just happened to be, you know, and it was really good, and it was really good for artists, especially in a time when it happened. You know, especially during the pandemic, a lot of artists didn't have work and all these things. Like, how can I like sustain myself? The issue with anything, especially anything new, is that eventually becomes trendy, and eventually everyone falls out of favor with it. You know, and you know it was really trendy, and people came in to make a lot of money during the last bull market. Yeah. And I'm sure they're going to do the same thing with this bull market. It just happens. And I have a friend that always like, because I'm into crypto. I have a friend that always like is against it. But I always tell him, I was like, listen, it depends on when we decide to have this conversation. One day I might be laughing at you, and one day you might be laughing at me. Things go up, things go down. You know, so I think the relevancy of NFTs, you know, it kind of like is pulled along with the tide of the markets, but I think as a staple within the importance of like how technology and human communication is advancing in the world in general, especially like going from in the digital age, is very important, especially for like what artists experience over the years of people stealing their media.
Right.
You know, it's a interesting way. And I don't think we've seen the final form of what. And I think the phrase or the acronym NFT is only associated or mainly associated from the popular standpoint of digital art and things like that, but it's like bigger than us.
Well,
you know?
NFT really just means the agreement. It doesn't mean that's art or whatever.
Exactly.
That's what I think got, and a lot of people weren't understanding what it was about. But for me, and not to ruffle anything here, but it got a little exploitative in my opinion. A lot of it was like just crypto bros that didn't even care what the art was about or anything, and just like it almost became like a super fast-paced version of what we saw of other art movements in the past that took years and decades happening in like this.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Well, it's kind of like what happens with the internet, right? But it's just that thing, man. You know, no matter, you're gonna see it with anything that becomes trendy or opportunity to move money around.
Oh yeah,
it'll be controversial. It's going to go up. It's going to crash. It's this thing. It's a thing, and I think what I appreciate about the technology and like the era of the popular NFTs, you know, because I think it's also going to come back with this bull market in terms of like how people look at it. However, you have to appreciate the people that's willing to beta test the technology for us. Like, or not even just us, but for like regular users, because when the technology and the agreement is going to be embedded in things that we don't even realize is embedded into, because people like me and other artists or whoever and these developers have taken the time. When there's a demand and a lot of money going around, the developers have an excuse to develop things, you know, and without the money being plugged in and tossed into the market, this technology would just kind of sit there.
Yeah, but you never hear about that part of it. You always it got too sensationalized, and then people were quick to hate from that before they were listening and understanding.
But we talked about this as so many things. We talked about a Cybertruck. We talked about a Pro Photo Light. It's like when things are, the gimmick things are what kind of push the things forward in a way, and not all the time, but you see it often where the technology that's under the hood of these things, you know, no puns intended, or the things that are important, and they're going to be, we're beta testing all these things for other people to use it. Think about what the internet was in the early days before now we have streaming or money transfers, or if we trusted, like people don't walk around with cash anymore because everything is just digital online. It's like, oh, you sign into your bank account. Imagine what life was like before that.
No, I get it.
You know, imagine what life was like before the dollar.
Oh no, I just think what happened with NFT was it got to a place of like, not trendy, but more like, and I don't want to say scammy, but it just got to a place where like we were putting values on things just because, rather than going like, is this artwork important? What is it doing? It wasn't about any of that. It was almost like a mask for what was really happening with it.
Yeah,
but
again, like, you know, I think they're all
at some point.
I think I take the good with the bad because it still pushes technology forward.
No, I'm with you. And
you
listen, credit cards online was like the biggest push forward, I think, for society, was like being able to actually purchase or commerce through online was mind blowing.
Yeah, and I'm not smart enough in that world. I'm knowledgeable, but I'm not smart enough in that world to have the foresight to know what's coming next in terms of this technology. But I know we're all going to be very shocked by it, but most people are not going to even realize it's happening when it's happening.
Well, the more we have digital that is actually having the same weight as in real life, like I personally think everyone online that's online should have some sort of accountability to their persona online, meaning those blue check marks shouldn't be bought. They should just verify that you exist and you have this idea.
I agree.
That way whatever you're saying is what you're saying, instead of just trolling and hating and whatever else. But
I think that system
goes for money.
Yeah, that system of verification is going there for a second. I think we live in a capitalist society, so like most things have to go through the money system, and
Well,
I
it's
think
on private servers. That's what it is. It's not like Twitter is not a government thing. It's a
yeah. I mean,
yeah. Well, let's not. No, stop. Yeah.
you're going down a very tricky road here, sir.
What I'm saying is like for example, it's, as an easy, lighthearted example, I buy a video game digitally from PlayStation. I don't own it. I can't sell it used.
Yeah.
Right. So they should have a way for you to own the digital. If I'm paying for it, I should own something.
Yeah, and that's like what you're seeing. That's a really good way that NFTs are still existing and has been thriving even in the bear market. Video games.
Yeah.
Because like you go play like going back to GTA for a second or any of the games we talked about.
Skins and stuff.
I've paid. I won those things. I bought those things. I own them. Even Call of Duty. You know, these times like you grind to get all these skins on these guns and these wardrobes and stuff.
I mean, nothing everywhere else.
once the other game comes out, it's done.
Yep.
But what if you could own that and sell it to someone else that wants to, or transfer it? You know,
I'm with you.
Those things kind of just are the thing.
Now we're talking about it as a commerce thing, which makes sense. I think the confusion and everything that was hated on was the way art was like a mask for some other stuff.
No, what was hated on is like these kids were getting rich really fast, and every time those things are happening, it's like, this is the pyramid scheme. Why is there so much money transferred to this? I can't justify paying $100,000 for a JPEG. That's why it was getting hated on. Because if money wasn't involved, it wouldn't even matter. Look at these kids just fucking putting things online. You know, like I think it was a thing where, especially if you think about how this is disrupting systems, right? It's like, imagine me being a journalist, and I'm working at a $50,000 job annually, and a kid in his basement just drew up some. First of all, and that goes deeper and deeper, right? Because photography at the core was hated on by painters.
I know. Yeah.
So like everything that disrupts a system gets hated on. So like now I spent all this, and I'll come back to the NFT crypto thing for a second, but initially it was people painting pictures, right? That's how you would. Cameras come
portrait.
out.
That was a portrait. For a painting. Yeah.
Cameras come out. It's like, how dare you? That's not art.
Daguerreotypes. People were doing exposure, sitting still for like 30 minutes trying to get an exposure. I get it.
And then film, and then digital disruption.
So you keep saying disruption. To counter that a little bit, devil's advocate, I don't call them so much disruption as a faster evolution. We're going so fast that it seems like it's disrupting, but it's probably going to get there at some point. We're just at light speed in this era.
Yeah, well, and I don't even think you're countering what I'm saying. It's just a different way to say it, you know, because it is still disruption, you know, and it's in another form. And just because it's moving so fast, it's getting disrupted, because like what happens is that people get really embedded. Like, for example, and we can go with cameras because like we're in a camera store, but when Sony came out with mirrorless cameras and really pushed that envelope, you remember? I don't think you remember how much. I don't know if you saw how much hate they were getting for that.
I don't think you realize how much hate came back when people weren't adopting it and they were looked at like dinosaurs, like longtime pros. I got heckled in my crowds using DSLRs. It's going both ways.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So like you have, and then I remember when the A7 came out, and it was, I mean, the A7 was like this big. It's the size of a Fuji X100.
I mean, the battery was a fourth of the size they are now.
Yeah.
Everything was tiny.
The lenses were tiny too, you know, because I think the initial marketing pitch was like, our cameras are as powerful and way smaller.
Yeah, that's always been a Sony pillar, was like keeping it compact.
So I remember the first few lenses that came out via Zeiss and all these things. It was like, I think it was like the 35 and the 55. It was a very small lenses, like, and then there was the 16 to 35 that was also small, and the 24 to 70. But it disrupted so many things. But like, we lived through that, which felt like an eternity ago. But that was just the other day, and like everyone is making mirrorless cameras now. We look at EVs, same thing. Now you look into finance system and DeFi and crypto and stuff like that. It's like all these things, it has pushback and the reason is because people are so embedded in their system. The reason I brought up cameras, if I bought an Nikon camera yesterday and I bought all the lenses, you know how much of an investment that is. Yeah. And then a new company comes out and just like drops some technology that's like game changing, like the A9 pre-shoots for you.
Right. So counter to that just a little bit. yes, everything's shooting mirrorless now, but if you look at what actually is going on, and we go in by generation by technology. So early days of mirrorless, if I told you the battery life and the heat issues and things like that, it wasn't prime time for people that depended on it to go shoot the Olympics and stuff like that.
No.
So
I agree, but those
an
things are
evolution
necessary.
thing. Oh, no, yeah.
Those things are necessary
Someone's
to
gotta
get
go first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to happen,
Yeah.
and that's my point with NFTs. To come back to it, is that we're in the early stages of those like overheating in small batteries.
With a lot of people that don't know what they're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or the people that are reporting on it don't know what
They're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the ones translating it and not translating it
to the masses.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, so when you hear these conversations, which is how we trust to get our news most of the time, is like people talking heads. You don't have time to go do your own research, so you're just taking the headlines and you not reading the articles. And you're like, NFTs.
Well, so right now they're saying AI. I mean, yeah, they're slapping AI on everything they can figure out, and that's gonna. I can't tell you. Like this year alone has felt like a life cycle of AI. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like how fast
But
it's been.
the last year, I think, had the biggest uptrend of AI development. I think if you look at, I think one of the popular videos you could look at right now is when Sora came out and they're dropping their videos. You look at what a year ago was doing the Will Smith eating spaghetti video, and it was horrible.
Or like the 16,000 fingers.
It was horrible. And now you with text prompt, you can get beautiful AI stuff. So I think like and I was going to get there even with the AI technology and cameras, what that's doing,
Yeah,
or the editing software AI stuff.
It's application. It's really about application of technologies. Is it going to replace people? That's up to the people wanting to hire people versus using AI.
Yeah,
a lot of people are like scared about like AI made movies. Well, then don't go buying tickets. They won't do it.
No, well, I think both could exist and should exist, right? And that's fine because I think the stories would just be different. So like going back into why you're doing something. So let's say you have an AI brain that's called like machine, right? And you know what a machine movie is versus like a movie that we create together.
Oh no, yeah, it's just like Pixar putting out their version of animation versus like other animations like that. I totally get it. My thing is the people that fear it, all you have to do is just not support it. If it doesn't make money, it doesn't survive in our world.
But like, yeah, but I'm for supporting just because in the again, I believe in advancing technology because like the things that we actually need that technology for, the flashy things are going to pay for it, So it's like we have to support the technology to have the money go back into other pockets of like someone that's in the chat just said like film resurgence, right? Like I used to still shoot film, and I think the pure things that we actually do enjoy, we gravitate towards, they're not going to die.
No,
they're.
But I also think there's a resurgence of film in the younger crowd specifically because one, they didn't experience it growing up, but it also throttles down the options. It gives them like a creative like stranglehold a little bit because they're just so over and inundated with what we have now that it gives them like, I'm working in this path with this tool with the way it does this.
Same thing with vinyl.
Yeah, same with
music.
Vinyl. Yeah,
it's kind of just so you put on a record and you have to listen to that.
And it's an album, not a song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to listen to that and sit down with yourself and why bookstores are still open. I have Audible, you know what I'm saying? Like I could sit and just listen to like 4 books a week.
It's a different experience.
And I think, those two things, it's going to be different
because one shrinks while the other one grows. It doesn't just exist side by side.
Exactly. And it's push and pull to it. I think there's seasons. Like I think there's going to be a spike in book sales sometimes, and there's going to be a downtick in book sales sometimes. And like, look how these artists are going about. Like now, I think from a medium standpoint, vinyl is the highest selling physical medium for music.
I believe it.
Like no one buying CDs, no one's buying cassettes and stuff like that. People don't even know what those things are anymore.
Yeah.
But you can't go to any store that sells music or talks about music and not get vinyl. It's there. I have a whole shelf of vinyl. I don't even have a record player, It's like, so those things, and it's the purest form to listen to music,
Yeah, I believe it.
So I see it's like when things get disrupted or, changed or affected in any way, like there's going back to like why we don't really like change. Like we're creatures of habit, as you mentioned. And we kind of like hold on to those things because we don't want to see them disappear.
Yeah, but we also don't even get a chance to settle into anything anymore. it's like we're already moving on to the next, and people that are just getting used to this thing are like, wait, what? And there's this feeling of left behind or relevancy, or wait, did I invest into something that like I can't even use in a few years? Or it's like it's frustrating. There's plenty of digital cameras in those used departments that take memory cards you will never find anymore, but those NYU kids want those cameras.
Yeah.
Like it's
you remember that memory card? I don't know if it was like if Sony developed it, but it was not a camera, but for the PSP. I forgot what it's called. It's like a compact memory card.
The PSP was the memory stick Duo.
So it was
a memory stick in half. It was the Duo. Yeah.
So what else used that?
2 digital cameras, I think. It was a CyberShot series. But then that's a proprietary memory, and that's what happens,
So like, yeah, I think when things are introduced, like you're hoping those things get, adopted and used. But that's why it's important to invest into things. Vote with your money on what you want to see.
But Sony is a pioneer that they will throw their chips down on a new technology, and they're the first ones to go for it because they believe in it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now will everybody else catch up with what we're doing here?
Apple does the same thing.
Yeah, Apple does do the same thing. Yeah, it's ecosystems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the Lightning. They finally got rid of the Lightning for their last 2 devices
with a nice arm bar in court. Yeah, they totally got rid of the.
But they were moving. So it's interesting when they went from that horrible 18-pin charger.
Do you remember the size of that thing? Was like
I remember.
Ridiculous.
It's also
iPods that were moving hard drives back then. They used to feel it spin in your pocket. You could put up to your head. And hear it.
But it's you toss out all this technology in hopes that yours gets adopted, and it's like,
no, someone's got to do it. And a company like Sony or Apple are large enough and instilled in our DNA as people to be able to handle it if there's a hiccup. And then we evolve from that. But whoa, man, we could go forever.
Yeah.
So, but
how long has it been?
It's been like an hour and a half, man.
Really?
Yeah, I know. I know. It's crazy. Listen, guys, if you want, check out Dane's work. His Instagram's right here. Man, you can tell by the way he talks, right? And it goes through his work. It's substantial. There's impact. There's a story. There's always more to it, is the way I would put it with Dane Isaac. Check out his work. And actually, I think do we have a TTL episode of you?
Yeah, I think
there's got to be something.
I actually don't have a TTL episode. I should.
Sal, I know you're watching this. It's all right. But Sony Alpha Collective member Dane Isaac and
is Sal back from?
Yes, he's here.
All right, cool.
And Sony, thanks for sponsoring this. Like I said, pioneers, and they're doing it with the global shutter right now. A93 in stock at Adorama. Dane, man, you got chill energy, but you're exhausting at the same time. It's amazing. It's amazing. There we go. Yo, be good, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. All right.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Later.